Hi guys, right, okay, this is going to be a bit different. So I'm pleased with the vlog. I really like the format and it's really great to be doing it again. And it's sort of 5 to 10 minutes and kind of a fun format. There's very little really that you can say in each one. It's a very inefficient way of communicating. And I've been thinking, I want to do things a bit differently. And the idea of this video, I'm going to try and do it almost like a live stream. I mean, don't actually have the rig to live stream at the moment, but we'll treat it like a live stream. I will edit it only if absolutely necessary. So I'm just going to try and let the camera run and talk to you guys. I am done. I really am done. I'm done being this kind of well-behaved person. And I thought this a long time. I think you see on the vlog a certain aspect of me, which in many ways is not wrong or disingenuous or false or anything. I mean, that is me, but it's a side of me, which is a relatively well-behaved side of me. And I'm done being that. I'm done just behaving myself. And I think this is such an important thing for young musicians to learn. So I want to talk about this in this video. I spent a lot of time this summer with my private students talking about risk. And I am of the view that the classical music world today is incredibly risk averse. It is far too risk averse. Everyone just wants to be liked all the time. We're all obsessed with popularity and what do you think of my music, and wanting to be approved by the big institutions, the big organisations. Now, it's great, of course, if you get approval from big organisations. It's great to have your music performed by big orchestras and played on the radio or whatever. I'm not pouring cold water on that, and I've been fortunate to have had that myself, and that's great. But it's building this climate, I think, where young composers and young musicians generally, and maybe this goes beyond music as well, but I'm particularly conscious of it in music, young musicians, young composers are desperate to please. And when does that ever made any great music? I mean, you see people putting up on Instagram saying, oh, what do you think of this? Shall I do more? Well, do it if you believe in it. Don't just say, oh, give me approval, give me likes. We're also obsessed, and it's not just a social media thing, but it is linked to social media, isn't it? That our lives are increasingly revolving around approval, and because of that, we get increasingly shy of risk. So yeah, talking to my private people, I'm going to do these videos with cups of coffee maybe. Maybe I'll have a beer one day. How about that? Hang out with James and a beer. Sounds good, right? So talking to my students this summer, it became increasingly apparent to me that they need to take more risks. And it's a theme I kept coming back to them with them. But it also became apparent that I need to take more risks. And I have been more risky in the past, and I've done some things which maybe I shouldn't have done. But my last few years of composing, in order to build a business, in order to have commissions and, I suppose, in a sense, build an audience a little bit on here, I haven't wanted to rock the boat. And I think, looking at the music that I've written over the last few years, a lot of it has been very small c conservative in many ways. And that's not right. So this video is to draw a line in the sand and to say, I am a modernist. I'm going to put my hands up and say, I believe in modernism, which, beyond the kind of obvious aesthetic of what you think modernism might be. I don't think modernism is about an aesthetic. I think modernism is about saying art needs to progress. Art needs to be original. Art needs to be aggressively, radically original. It needs to tear up the rulebook and do something new. I just don't think that is at all a popular way of thinking in music anymore. Now, we say it was never meant to be popular. I mean, the whole idea of modernism is being unpopular and not caring what people think. But when has composing ever succeeded from people really just caring about what other people think? And so this is a lecture to myself, but it's also a lecture to you guys, especially if you're, I know a lot of the people who follow this channel, young musicians, young composers. I mean, it goes for performing as well, right? I just think so much of what goes on in music nowadays is wanting to just make things as other people do them, or as other people kind of think are right. And I mean, okay, let's talk about performance, right? Okay, let's think about the historical performance movement. It's historically informed performance. So the general trajectory that historically informed performance has taken is from when it kind of really started out in, say, the 60s-ish. It was kind of part of this sort of hippie, LSD, sandals, vegan, vegetarian kind of alternative culture. And some of the playing that was done back then was really quite kind of odd and a bit rough and ready and maybe a bit rubbish. And the whole concept, as far as I understand it anyway, was to sort of get away from this professionalized, polished way of making music. And the trajectory that historically informed performance has taken since then has been to become assimilated into the mainstream, and you now have big arts organizations that are historically, I'm not going to edit this video. I'm going to force myself not to edit it. Okay, so yeah, arts institutions that promote historically informed performance, right? It's become establishment. You see it at big concerts, on the radio, and so on. And I think it's lost something, which is it's lost that edge. It's lost the rawness that being kind of alternative and weird had. I'm not saying that that's entirely a bad thing, and there's lots of historically informed performance nowadays which in many ways is terrific, but I don't see people being willing to do that kind of weird thing. I don't see in the classical composing world in Britain at the moment particularly a willingness to really do something different. It all seems to be so much about like me, approve me, yay, my stuff, do you like it? Give it a thumbs up. I'm fed up with it. I am just fed up with it. And I'm fed up with it in myself, and I'm fed up with it in the students that I see when they produce music, which is clearly kind of going down that route. And, it's great to see students having success and all the rest of it, which is wonderful. But ultimately, what is music about, right? In 2020, is it acceptable as a composer to produce wallpaper? Right, whether it's wallpaper for commercial purposes or for a concert, right? I mean, I think a lot of concert music could be counted as basically wallpaper. It's just filler, right? It's not art. Art has to be aspiring to greatness. It has to aspire to the beyond. It has to aspire to originality and to beauty and truth, and in very broad senses of those words. I mean, what is beauty? Well, beauty can be incredibly raw and rough and horrible, as well as what you might conventionally think of as beautiful. But is it acceptable to write wallpaper? No, I don't think it is. And look, it may well be, right, that you want to make a living from being a composer. And it may well be that you make the decision to write background music for videos. And look, I mean, my company makes videos and, we do background music to certain things. And, I'm fine doing that. It's a kind of a nice little side hustle, I suppose. And, I've got to do some interesting projects with some interesting people, which is all great. So I'm not pouring cold water on that. But it is not art. And I'm very clear about that. Composing art music, which is what I'm interested in ultimately, and what my, even my company is ultimately a side hustle to composing art and trying to aspire to write something, if not great. Well, I aspire to write something great one day. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but that is not the same as writing wallpaper. And that's what I'm curious to understand, why so many people seem to just want to produce wallpaper. So coming back to risk, I think generally we have all become incredibly risk averse. And this isn't a rant about the pandemic. I mean, I know that obviously risk is something that people are thinking about a lot in the pandemic. And look, I fully appreciate everyone's got their own views on these things. And this channel is not going to become, I mean, I've never on this channel wanted to go into specific discussions about things which were controversial just for the sake of it, because I'm all about bringing people on board and getting them engaged, and that's why I don't talk about politics, for example, on anything online, because I think it is a very good way of excluding people, and this channel is not a political channel, so that's why I don't talk about politics. But risk is something which affects every decision we make, right? And our risk profile, right? How much risk you're willing to take. And I mean, look, I was reading this over lockdown. Where is it? One of the books I read during lockdown was this book, Jan Swofford's biography of Beethoven. You're getting a focus there. Fantastic book, in a kind of quite traditional format. I mean, it's not, he's a composer, an American composer. He's not a sort of standard mainstream academic, full-time, professional musicologist. So it is scholarly, but it is not part of the kind of the intelligentsia and the inner circle and the bit of a clique that there is in musicology. No offense to my colleagues, but there's a side of that which is, everyone's sort of saying the right things because that's what you have to say. It's a little bit of an old-fashioned book, but it really brought home to me just blimey, what a life Beethoven had. We think we got it hard, growing up in Bonn and, the whole of Bonn burning down and a massive flood that floods his house right up to the third floor. I think he has to go, whole family kind of go up several floors and sort of hide in the top. Endless medical problems. I mean, he had, throughout his life, he had really terrible bowel problems and all kinds of other medical problems and, nearly dies on several occasions. It's amazing he got to the age that he did get to, getting to his 50s. And just how on earth anyone did anything in the 18th century, the early 19th century, with all these medical problems and, wars breaking out as well. I mean, growing up in the time of the French Revolution and, soldiers marching through Bonn and, not knowing, Bonn getting invaded and all this stuff that went on. I mean, I think we sometimes lose perspective. And this is not to kind of have a rant about the pandemic, as I say, because I do appreciate everyone's got different views on this, and I'm glad I'm not in charge, quite frankly, of any country at the moment, because it's clearly very difficult to know what the way forward is. But more generally, I do think that we have become incredibly risk averse, and I don't think we value risk-taking. I mean, this is a point Luke Johnson makes in his column in the Sunday Times, which I read and am quite a fan of, which is that society doesn't really value risk-takers. We all enjoy the fruits of risk-takers every day, right? The people who took the risk to invent things, right? To build businesses so that, I could have this camera and we could have YouTube and I could drink this coffee and all the rest of it. We take for granted the fruits of risk-takers, but we don't value risk-taking. And there's so much in society nowadays, I think, certainly in Britain, where risk-taking is seen as a bad thing. It's not encouraged with young people. It's not developed and it's not fostered. And in music, I think this is going to lead to an atrophying of music, of contemporary music, of composing. I'm not saying what people should write, and I'm not attacking any particular musical style or any, there's plenty of risky music to be written in C major still, right? To echo what Schoenberg said. Look, I think a good way to give this some clarity, and it not just me being a rant, is let's talk about, let's look at Milton Babbitt. Who cares if you listen? Where is it? Maybe I'll edit this bit where I go and find the book. Yeah, I think it's in this book. I mean, basically what Milton Babbitt says in this article is that composing advances, right? Like a science. And he says, well, maybe it's the case that music has just got so complicated that not everyone can appreciate it. And therefore, who cares if you listen? Because it might be the case that a mathematical conference, say, will be so advanced that only 20 people in the world might understand it. And no one thinks anything wrong with that. They just accept that maths has advanced to the point at which not everyone gets it. And he says basically the same could have happened with music. That music might have just advanced to the point at which not everyone can understand it. It's just hard, right? And composers shouldn't worry about this. They shouldn't worry about the fact that no one listens to their music and that no one goes to the concerts or plays the music or whatever. They just need to write the music. And look, I'm all about, if you know me, I'm all about opening accessibility to music and all the rest of that kind of fluffy stuff, which I do honestly believe. And it's very much a part of me. But I think it's worth saying in this video and drawing the line here and saying that there's another side to me which links to that, which is that actually music does need to advance, and music might leave people behind, and that doesn't matter. Music is not a popularity contest. Music is about writing what you believe in. And when I say this, I'm very conscious that there's a whole kind of vast panoply of bumper stickers on the internet, on Instagram, on Facebook, all this kind of rubbish that, says follow your dreams and do your own thing and don't let anyone else make you worry about what you're doing or whatever. And I think a lot of that is just bollocks, and it actually, it's very easy to share a post that says "follow your dreams" or whatever, but actually to follow your dreams, whatever. I don't even. I mean, actually to do something that you believe in that is different, right? That isn't going to please people, that isn't going to get likes, isn't going to get subs on YouTube, or isn't going to get played on the radio or win prizes or whatever. That is hard, and it bears repeating, and I think I'm going to repeat this message again and again because I have to repeat it to myself. We all, as musicians, as artists, as composers, need to take risks and stop worrying what everyone else thinks. And a little bit of Milton Babbitt in us would be a good thing. And that's what's going to drive me in what I'm going to be doing next. It drives me with the company as well, right? I mean, look, if you've been following the vlogs, you see I'm sort of telling the story of this company, and I'm telling it kind of in two parallel tracks. So I've got a bunch of footage that we shot over the summer. This Sunday, or some footage will go up from kind of September, where we had a away weekend here, but I'm kind of also commenting it as it goes. So there's kind of these two parallel threads. Company's going really well, but sometimes I think, James, have you lost your mind? Because not only are you doing something which is, frankly, no one's really done, but producing cheap, high quality scores, undercutting competitors, and the way we're doing it is the other thing is odd, is that we have a team of largely young musicians, a lot of music students. You could say to me, and I often have this anxiety, quite frankly, James, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing a proper business? Why don't you have full-time employees and a proper office, and do a recruitment process where you get qualified people rather than, I mean, we've got some great team members of all sorts of levels of qualification. We do have some people who are very highly qualified, but we have a lot of young musicians, as I say, music students who aren't particularly experienced. But I'm absolutely convinced that this is the right way forward, and that if we're going to help young musicians, and that's the aim, our target really is kind of musicians up to the age of 25 who don't have a lot of money and would appreciate high quality scores at an affordable price. If we're going to do that, we don't want a bunch of men in their 40s and 50s sitting around a boardroom saying, oh yes, I think that's what we need to do. That's what the young people like these days. We need a team of young people to be close to our customers. But not many people get what I'm doing. I think most people in the team now are beginning to get their heads around what I'm trying to do, but a lot of people don't. Friends, family don't get it. And to be completely on your own, running a business and keeping your eye completely focused on what you're trying to get to, and having the tenacity and willpower to get there and use all your energy and enthusiasm to bring a team together to try and get there, and accept that people will think what you're doing is potentially bonkers. That is hard, and that is modernism. That is modernism just as much as Milton Babbitt saying, "Who cares if you listen?" It's not a popularity contest. Life is not a popularity contest, whether it's art or whether it's business. I think this thing about risk takers. Every innovative business started out in some form or another as a bunch of people who might have, to all intents and purposes, seemed like they'd lost their minds a bit, right? The Industrial Revolution, right? Look, we take it for granted. We've got trains and engines and all the rest of it. But if you think about how the steam engine came into effect, it was really a bunch of slightly potty guys tinkering around and putting something together and trying all kinds of different things, and it finally working, and finally a kind of design develops, which then sort of lasts. But the aeroplane, or think of the tech world as well. I mean, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. I mean, whatever you think of them and what you think of their businesses that they built, to start out in a garage, right, and just trying to build a business out of scratch with a bunch of slightly madcat people. I'm saying all this because, in a sense, it's just selfish to reassure myself, but I think it's worth sharing this stuff, and I don't think I can go into this level of detail in the vlog because it just will slow it down, and the vlog is meant to be a kind of fun, energetic, nice bit of content, but I need to give these glosses, and frankly, I don't care what you think. So don't leave a comment. I don't care about your comments. Don't leave a comment. Don't give a thumbs down. Go on. Just say you dislike it. Make me more of a modernist. Okay, so that's Bearded Fridays. I'm going to do more of these, whether you like them or not. I mean, joking apart, you can say what you thought if you like, but there's going to be more. There's a podcast coming up. There's going to be more technical Tuesdays. There's going to be lots of content. The big goal with this company is basically to produce lots of useful stuff for musicians, because we have a limited time on this planet, and I could try and do other things if I wanted to, but frankly, I would rather just do something that's useful for musicians, because I don't think you guys are very well served by the world at the moment. And I want you to start taking risks, okay? Like I say this to my students, don't just think about what will get you a competition win or a performance with someone. Like, try and write something that, like, if you're at school, right, you're writing stuff for school, why don't you write something that gets you expelled, That would be a jolly good piece, wouldn't it, But, try, look, Beethoven again. I mean, I'm going to come back to Beethoven, but admittedly, he had his commercial gigs that he did, Wellington's Victory, Wellington's Sieg. This was a kind of, he admitted that he said it was shit, basically. And he said, my shit's better than anything else that you could write. But he had this reevaluation as well. He had this point when he got, done a couple of symphonies, and he was, it was the Neue Weg, right? The new way. He realized, actually, I need to do something different. I've done something good, but it's nowhere near what I could aspire to. And the Third Symphony was a part of this process of saying, right, let's just push it more, bigger, louder, faster, harder, stronger, whatever. Just push it further to the absolute limits that you can go. Pour all your energy and love and enthusiasm and power and strength into trying to advance art. That's what we need to do. Not sitting around cutting and pasting bits of previous bars and just knocking out something that acts like a bit of wallpaper. Okay, rant over. I'll see you again soon.